Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 429.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because here's something you may have noticed. You may have noticed that right now you say, you know what? I want to build a business. I want my cash flow to grow, and that's great. But have you noticed that the world doesn't just say, yeah, okay, sure, no problem. Let me pave the way for you. In fact, you may have heard a phrase similar to something like this, that tough times don't last, but tough people do. Well, today's guest, I believe, has some information that will help you and I not only last, not only survive, but dare I say, thrive right now. In fact, she's written a book called The Thriver's Edge, 7 Keys to Transform the Way You Live, Love, and Lead. What I think we're going to learn today is just how to really get to where we want to go. So hopefully you are ready, because today's guest is none other than Dr. Donna Stoneham, and she's a master executive coach, transformational leadership expert, author, activist, and speaker. And she's been doing this for a long time, code 2 decades, and then some. Here's the point. She's worked with Fortune 1000 leaders, teams, and organizations to help them really tap in to what's inside so that they can, yes, thrive. And now she's here to help you and I do the same. So let's get ready to listen. Let's get ready to learn. And I think we're going to end up loving Dr. Donna Stoneham. Donna, you there?
I am, Jay. Great to be with you today.
I'm glad that you are here too. I definitely appreciate that the I don't know if it's not necessarily the command, but the idea that thriving is still possible, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. Now, before we go there though, this being your first time here, I need to ask you the same question that I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
I am.
Awesome. And I'm glad that you were able to make some time to be here today. Now, here's the thing. This being the first time that you're here, I need to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, Batman, Robin, Superman, Wonder Woman even. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Chief among them, occasionally as an entrepreneur, we can imagine ourselves, using our products and services and saving our customers in various different forms. But also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. And for example, if you think about Peter Parker, there was a time where he was just a college student, going to school, trying to get good grades, taking some photos to make sure he could eat some pizza. And then one day he gets bit by a spider, which then gives him this ability that he discovers and has to now choose to use for good or evil. And then we know him as Spider-Man. So my question to you is as follows. Before, being featured in the likes of BuzzFeed, the Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Woman's Day, etc., before the many books you've written, yet and definitely before The Thriver's Edge, before you were even coaching and helping executives reach their true potential, what we want to know is, who is Donna Stoneham?
Well, wow, that's a big question. Thanks, Jay. That's exciting. So Donna Stoneham, that would be me, is someone who's fully committed to doing everything in my power to help people thrive in their work and life. Mm-hmm. And I say that because just over 50% of people in the United States believe that they're thriving. And yet we have the largest economy in the world, and we're 17th in world happiness. So that tells me that we've got a problem, Houston. And I want to do everything in my power, and I strive to do everything in my power to help change that equation and flip that so that we raise those numbers and that more and more people are capable of thriving and enjoying and really taking in this wonderful gift of life that we've been given.
Interesting. Now, I just want to be clear. You said just over 50% believe that they're thriving, and we're
Yes.
17th in world happiness.
Yes.
Now, I'm just going to be very candid. When you said that, I was like, wow, that sounds like a high number. 50% being, believing that they're thriving. That's higher than the number I would have expected. You're saying that number's not high enough.
I'm saying it's not high enough because there's a lot of reasons that often are unconsciously self-imposed that keep us from thriving.
Oh,
And that's what I want to help people see. What are those things that keep you from reaching your potential and to paying it forward and making this a better world so all of us can thrive?
Well, okay. If it's unconscious, then what you're really saying is we don't even know what we don't know that's holding us back.
Absolutely. It's very true. It's
Oh,
very,
my goodness.
So
Okay.
the first step to thriving is deepening one's self-awareness.
Got it. Okay. Now, before we go too far deep, I want to know, you said 17th in world happiness.
Yes.
How on earth is that measured, and who's number one?
So the Scandinavian countries tend to be highest on the scale. And a lot of that is because they don't work themselves to death like we do. They have educational benefits for folks. They have health benefits for people. And, there's just I think it's a more community-oriented and related, they're more community and oriented related cultures than we can be sometimes. We get so caught up in acquisition and driving for success, and often that success is at someone else's definition. It's not really our own.
Ooh.
That we lose sight of what's really important in our lives.
Okay. Now, 17th, is that out of 17?
No, it's 17. It's a whole list, but we're 17th on the list. I don't remember exactly how many in total.
Okay, but we're not last.
We're not last. No,
Okay.
we're not last. But
All right,
but given how much money we have and how much wealth we have, it's quite surprising. The other statistic that's really important, and I think this would be very important to your audience, and probably a main reason why a lot of folks are listening to this today and are in that audience, is that in the United States, 7 out of 10 people who go to work every day are not engaged in their jobs.
Yeah. That
That's
would
a lot
definitely
of
be
people.
a reason that a number, I can see somebody right now saying, yeah, that's me. That's why. You're right. That is why I'm listening. So with that being the case, people not being engaged in their job, etc., and us being 17th, clearly then financial success or money has nothing to do with thriving.
I wouldn't say it has nothing to do with it, because I do think that thriving is a privilege. It's not everyone is able to thrive. If you're a single mother raising 4 kids on minimum wage, it's pretty hard to feel like you're thriving when you're just scrapping by, you're scrapping to get by every day. So it is a blessing and a privilege to be able to thrive. So I think it's important not to paint with such a wide brush. And to be really aware. But what I do believe is that if you are one of the people who is thriving, I believe very much it's our responsibility to give back and to pay it forward. And that the people that I know who in my work and in my life, and certainly in my own personal life, that when we do pay it forward and give back to the world in whatever capacities we can, that is a huge factor in us feeling like we're able to flourish and able to thrive.
Got it. Totally understood. Now, with that being the case, because you said there were some things that are unconscious. And this sounds like, to me, at least from where you're coming from, this sounds like it. I'm just going to assume that there was a time where you didn't just wake up one day and go, oh, I got it. People aren't thriving and I can help them with that. Take us on the journey. Where does Donna begin, and how do we end up where we are today?
So I started my career actually as a social worker. And I moved from there and I got into industry. And from industry, I was a vice president of several different healthcare organizations. And I just kept seeing dysfunction in the organizations that I wanted to be able to do something about. So that's when I struck out on my own. And it's been, I started my own practice in 1992. So it's been a while. And I kind of wanted to be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem that I was seeing, and going in and trying to change some of these things. In 97, I got very sick, and I was out of work for almost 3 years, largely as a result of driving myself like a Mack truck. So I was running 2 businesses and working on my graduate degree at the same time, working in and out about 80-hour weeks, which is a big trap for entrepreneurs. You know, often we love what we do so much that we don't set the boundaries and the limits we need to set. But that particular time in my life was a time when I got a lot of clarity about what I was here to do in my life. I had a lot of time to think about it. And it was the most challenging time in my life to date, and yet I received the biggest blessings from that time in terms of clarity about my mission and what I was here to do, and how I wanted to do my part to help create a better world.
Got it. So then I now have 2 questions then, because there's a number of people who are listening and they're all at various stages, but 2 things stick out to me is, one, there was this moment where you had to decide to strike out on your own. And for some that's really, really challenging to do, to develop that courage. But yet you did it. And then 2, there's this other moment after striking out on your own where you're hit with an additional crisis that also could choose, some could choose to say that, well, that's it, I'm done with this. But yet you also made a different decision than what others have made in the past. So my question is, what is the courage to make that initial decision, and a true test to make that same decision again, but differently?
So I think initially, I had a very wonderful friend who, when I was thinking about leaving the corporate world and striking out on my own, she asked me this question that I'll never forget. And also, it was so important, I included it in the book. She said, at what price freedom? At what price responsibility?
At what price? Hold on. Say that again. At what price?
At what price freedom?
At
what price responsibility?
Okay.
And so to me, I made the decision that being free and being able to call my own shots and to sort of create my own destiny and starting my own practice and being in my own business was the call that I was really being called to, as opposed to staying in a corporate setting at the time, building perhaps a bigger portfolio than I might have otherwise, stock options, et cetera, than I wouldn't have. That the freedom was more important to me than the responsibility to buy a lot of stuff, acquire a lot of things, et cetera. So that was just my own personal equation that I had to go through, and that was a very, very important question. That's one aspect.
So that I understand it correctly, are you saying she was asking you to come up with a number?
Yeah, she was saying, weigh it. What's more important to you? Being free or having the responsibility, being able perhaps to have the responsibility of a bigger house, a bigger car, a bigger, because you didn't take the choice to be an entrepreneur. Because, it's for a lot of us, certainly in my beginning years, it was tough. It was tough to build. Now I'm doing great, and I'm doing as well or better than I could have been doing had I been in an organization.
Right. Totally understood.
In those initial moments, you have to make a lot of sacrifices as an entrepreneur.
Definitely more than one.
And be willing to do that.
So, okay. And then what leads you to remake that same decision after, we'll call it your second crisis moment, if you will?
I call it my belly and the whale experience, which is really what it was.
Yeah. I love it. Okay.
And for me, it was knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had one life, that for a time I wasn't sure I was going to be able to ever work again. I had a chronic disease, and I didn't know that I would ever be able to do it again. So I decided that everything I did, if I were ever able to get back to work, had to be in the service of a deeper mission that meant something to me and that was important to me, and that I felt like I could really make a contribution to the world.
Got it. And that deeper mission came for you to be helping others thrive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's start with something basic. As you see it, because we could all have our own perspective on this, what constitutes thriving?
So in my book, I use an acronym for Thriver.
Okay.
And I think there are 7 different keys that really help us thrive and be able to unleash our potential. So I'll list those, and we can go into any of them that you would like.
Yeah, okay.
It's trust, humility, resilience, inner direction, vision, expansiveness, and responsibility.
Got it. So I'm going to start with the one that I think I understand the least right now, and that's going to be expansiveness.
So many of us, Jay, if we're not aware that we're doing it, look at the world through a soda straw. And what I mean by that is we have a very limited perspective of our possibilities, what's out there before us. Because our belief system, our assumptions, the way we see the world is so deeply embedded in a particular way of viewing things. So therefore, we're not allowing ourselves to see the full landscape of what's possible, of what we can actually accomplish, of what we can actually do and become and be in the world. We limit ourselves, which is what the first part of the book is about those limitations that keep us from stepping into how we could be most successful in our life.
Interesting. Okay. So when it comes to this concept of being able to see more, be more, etc., how does one change that when, we'll say, the environment that we're presented with every day seems to be aggressive towards life expanding sometimes?
So I think there's several things that help us build our capacity to be more expansive. And the first thing there is that we have to be willing to change. We have to be willing to say, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe what I think is the way it is actually not completely the way it is. And I'm willing to see and enlarge my perspective on what's possible. So in my book, I talk about there's a couple of things we have to do in order to do that. Most of us have a very active inner critic who constantly reminds us of all the things we don't do well and how we can't do certain things. We have to consciously work to develop what I call an inner champion. So that's the part that lives in all of us, that wants us to fulfill our mission, that wants us to be. I mean, I believe that with all my heart and soul, that we were each born to make a contribution. We have to understand what that is, and we have to be willing to do the work to get out of our own way to be able to make that contribution. So we have to learn how to manage our perceptions, and we also have to sometimes set boundaries that enable our expansion, which sounds like, that sounds at odds with each other.
Yeah, you could say that.
but it's like setting a boundary as an entrepreneur that I'm going to make sure that I have 2 nights a week with my family, as opposed to working all the time. Because if I spend those nights, and that's not very much time, obviously, but for some entrepreneurs, that's a lot. So I'm going to make sure I spend that time, because when I spend time with my family, it fulfills me. I can see the joy in the world. I don't just become an automaton. Right?
But you're mentioning something that I think it's kind of a challenge to wrestle with when you say when something fulfills, when you're seeking that fulfillment feeling, for like, I don't know what else to call it. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs feel that when they feel that more when they're involved in mixing it up and doing the things that they like to do, more than they may feel it when they're around their significant others, and that validation comes from their work. Hello there, entrepreneur. This is Jay Massey, and what I want to say to you is that the number one mistake that I have ever made in business, number one, has been waiting too long to do the books, waiting too long to get the bookkeepers, the accountants, the CPAs, the CFOs involved, and I don't want you to make that same mistake. That mistake cost me over 6 figures, and now for a significant discount, you have the ability to get your books together using FreshBooks. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to gofreshbooks.com/cashflowdiary. Again, that's gofreshbooks.com/cashflowdiary. FreshBooks is the easy to use software designed to help you, the small business owner, the freelancer, get organized and save time on invoicing, getting paid faster, keeping those books in order so that it becomes a bonus for you to do your taxes as opposed to a burden. Go over to gofreshbooks.com/cashflowdiary and get started today. And now let's get back to the rest of the story.
Well, I think that my sense is that over time, however, that's not really sustainable. It may be in the beginning. It may be when things are really fun, when things are challenging, when things are exciting. But I think that we're more than, we're called human beings instead of human doings for a reason.
I like human doings. Sorry, that's funny. I like it. Yes.
And so when we forget that perspective, what I think really makes life rich and robust and really allows us to bloom where we're planted is balance. If you were a flower and you lived in summer year round, you wouldn't be able to do you wouldn't be able to grow. So it's not dissimilar as a human being. It's like if all you do is focus on your work all the time, you're really not able to grow.
Yeah, I get that. And so when it comes to this concept of thriving and entrepreneurs and expansiveness, it's not necessarily always about getting more. What I think I'm picking up here is we're to be multi-dimensional beings, and yet we tend to focus on very narrow pieces of that multi-dimensionality, and we should find ways or look for ways to experience all of what we were born to be. Am I getting close?
You're very close. So I would say, I use the metaphor, it's like making a choice to live in Technicolor versus monochrome.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the I inside of Thriver, because I think there's going to be information there that's going to help a ton of people too.
Yeah. So inner direction?
Yes, ma'am.
Inner direction is our capacity to really tune into our own inner compass. So it's really about intuition and being receptive to our own advice. I'll give you an example, a recent example of something that happened in my own life. We bought our house about 10 years ago. We love it. We never thought we'd leave. I really thought I would die here. It's a lot of things I wanted, but there's certain limitations about it that, I couldn't quite figure out. to get over the hurdle. I needed more space to run groups and do some other things that I wanted to do. So we went in a house that we looked at a few weeks ago, and it was way over what I ever thought I would ever live in or be able to buy or be able to qualify for, or it was just like totally a dream house. And I walked in there, and I kept hearing this voice in my head that said, "This is your house. This is your house. This is your house." It was my intuition. It was my inner direction trying to tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
Against all the odds of all the rational reasons why I thought that was not probable or possible. You ever live there? We are in escrow on that house right now. So your life really expands. It really, that wonderful movie years ago that I think Kevin Costner was in, that was Build It, They Will Come, about the
Field of Dreams?
Field of Dreams, yes. Build it, they will come. And it's really true. It's like if you really listen to your intuition and not all the critical inner voices that are always going off in your head about why you can't do something. That's what I mean. And you have to hone that. So you have to learn and discern, is it really my inner voice? Is it really my intuition telling me that? Or is it my ego?
Well, okay. So now you're bringing up something that I think a lot of people are dealing with. And to some degree, I don't know if we ever really escape this one, because between social media, the concept of keeping up with the Joneses, you said it yourself, the odds being in or out of our favor, the rational reasons, facts, the evidence, all this other stuff. How do I gain any confidence with that intuition? I mean, just for a moment, let's pretend that I'm just starting my business out. Let's pretend that person that's listening is in that spot. How do they know? That's hard, because they're listening to so many different pieces of input come at us today between our phones and computers and friends. How on earth is one to go against what feels like difficulty and say, no, this is where I'm going to plant my flag?
So I think it's a process. It's a journey. It is a willingness to step into that terrain of the unknown, because it's a calling. It's something in your heart that you were born and meant to do. It's the difference between knowing, look, it's about that deep, basic human need to want to make a difference in the world. And so one of the things that I talk a lot with my coaching clients about, because I work a lot with people that are in the midst of transition. And what I talk to them about is there's a very important question we have to focus on. If we're really going to thrive and be successful. And that is, are we willing to make the shift between the question of what can I get to the question of what can I give?
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, so if all you're focused on is what you can get, then what's likely to be happening is you are being more driven by your ego. If you're asking the question, how can I make a difference? What is the world asking of me? What is the contribution I can be making? What's the legacy I really want to leave behind in the world? Then if you're coming from that place, it's much more likely that the responses and the answers you're getting inside your head are coming from your intuition.
I like it. I like that a lot, because I think fundamentally as an entrepreneur, one of the things we must do if we're to have a successful business is to think about who can I serve and how can I serve, hundreds, if not thousands, or tens of thousands, or even millions. And that starts with that process of what can I give. So curious, how did you evolve to that level of thinking yourself?
Well, I think, I would say I went through the school of hard knocks, which a lot of people do. And
it does seem to have lots of students.
It does. I mean, I always tell people there's two ways you can learn and there's two ways you can grow, either out of inspiration or desperation. And some of us are really stubborn and it kind of takes desperation to get us. Other people are more open and they tend to, navigate more by inspiration. I would say I have changed that in my life. I much more navigate by inspiration now than desperation. I don't get to that point anymore just because I've worked, I'm a self-development junkie. I've been doing this for, 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's harder when you're just on the road and you're just starting out, for sure. But I would say that's why, equal parts reflection and action are so important and so vital in the world. We have to spend the time really being brutally honest with ourselves.
Whoa, you just said something really important that I think some people may have missed. You said equal parts reflection and reaction. So expound on that one for me a little bit.
Well, so equal might not be exactly the right distribution here, but
sure.
I would say, making sure that you calendar in time every day in your schedule for some kind of a reflective practice is really important. Whether that for some people may be meditation, it may be writing, journaling, it may be, for some people it's running, because they can sort of wipe the slate clean and really think, really, so it's different for different people. Like for me, I meditate every day for half an hour. And that's like food for me. If I don't do that, I'm not as happy. I try to make sure
Got it.
And I'm not as nice either.
Got it.
I can notice the tenor of my demeanor, how it shifts when I've been still and quiet and listened versus when I haven't. So you have to find your own, I call it your practice. What's your practice that's going to enable you to really think, reflect. For some people, it's reading their kids a bedtime story and snuggling at night before they go to sleep. And you make that connection about what's most real in your life, what's most important. And you don't.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's your anchor. We all have to find an anchor.
Yeah. I get that. What's interesting though is in the concept of thriving. To be very clear, I was thinking we were going to be having a conversation that was more motivated by maybe sales or business growth, things of this nature. But is that even in the realm? I mean, does that factor in anywhere?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what we're talking about right now is creating a foundation, right? A foundation for thriving. And when you are coming from a place of flourishing, of really believing that there's enough to go around, of really living your own personal mission and your own purpose and stepping into that fully, the sky's the limit about what you can achieve and what you can accomplish. And what you can give back, frankly. For me, it's I have 3 rates in my practice. I have a low bono, a pro bono, and a no bono. So I try to find a way to balance giving back with, how to balance that. So because that helps me thrive. Now, for another person, their capacity and their sense of thriving may be building the biggest business the planet has ever known and enabling, 100,000 employees to eat, right? And to have a life and to help to see that it's like where's our place in stewardship, whatever that is, whatever capacity that is, and building that. So no, it's not in any way suggesting that people should be small or reduce their dreams, or it actually, this foundation we're describing, when it is built on trust and resilience and inner direction and vision and expansiveness and responsibility, that's what enables us to really make the biggest difference in the world.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. So, I know that a number of people have been listening this far, and they probably want to pick up, a copy of the book, find out more about how you think and what you have going on. Maybe even they're like, you know what? Maybe Donna can help me thrive. What's going to be the best way for them to follow up with you?
So I have a Facebook page, which is Donna Stoneham, Ph.D. That's my professional page. And there's a link on that page, at the top of the page, to sign up for the mailing list, which includes Monday Tips to Thrive. And those go out every other week. Mm-hmm. And the best email to reach me is donna@positiveimpactllc.com.
Got it. Now, as we wind down, I've got a final question for you, because I'm curious to hear what your answer is. Let's pretend for a moment that someone listening is ready to jump off that cliff. They are ready to become that entrepreneur. In fact, they are standing in front of the superhero outfit store about to pick out their cape and tights. However, as they make that decision, as you alluded to before, and is a constant companion for many, in the back of their head, they have this voice, and that voice, it comes up, it reminds us of what we're not, who we're not, and how dare we, and yeah, you made 2 million, but how on earth are you going to make 10? You know, it tells us all the things we can't do and why we can't do it, and presents us with that evidence. But for whatever reason, they're like, you know what, I'm still gonna move forward, and they're trying to take that next step. So my question to you is as follows: let's pretend that this time they're actually going to follow through. They're going to do what you suggest, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
So, if they're ready to really make the leap, I think there's several things that are extremely helpful. One, make sure you surround yourself with what I call in my book soul tenders. Okay? So these are the people that you know in your life are going to really support you and champion you and be there for you and give you advice. So it's finding mentors, a support group. I mean, there are tons of those around for entrepreneurs. So find a way that you're going to be surrounded and you're going to have a community of support around you as you disembark on your leap across the mountain over the Great Divide, right? Mm-hmm. You're flying. I think that's a really important piece. The second piece is to make sure that daily, no matter what is happening in your life, you reconnect yourself to your mission and your purpose and why you're here. The third trap that I certainly experience, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do experience from time to time, is trying to be all things to all people. So be really aware. This has been a question I've asked myself, and it's helped me so much, especially the last 15 years of my life and my business is what I'm about to do really aligned with my mission? So don't take the bait if it's not. You'll end up getting so diluted, and you'll lose the joy you have for what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, totally.
Trust the universe is big enough that it's going to send you an opportunity that might be a better fit.
Wow. That's awesome, and I like it. I like it a lot. I definitely appreciate the effort and the work and the consistency with which you've been out there giving, and the fact that you even asked the question, what can I get versus what can I give, says a lot about who you are, and you're helping other people, ourselves, to do the exact same thing, and that's good. And I definitely appreciate you taking the time to invest your wisdom, your knowledge, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Oh, you're so welcome. And one of the things I'd like to say about the book is that at the end of each chapter, I have reflection questions and practices that help people really dig in, and it's almost like a workbook. So you can dig into each of these capacities and really take an honest look at how can you flourish in your own work and life, and what's getting in your way, and how do you move beyond that.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means, get over to Facebook. Go look up Donna Stoneham, Ph.D. Make sure that you follow the paths that are being laid out for you, because at the end of the day, you know you're looking to thrive. You're looking for more than just survival. You want your business, your idea to go out there, but you also want all of the other facets of life to be excellent as well. I think you've found a way to begin to make that happen. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.